What's up?
Oh, I'm just compiling all the top sports scores, news, and odds so I can make the very best bets.
Me too. BetOnline.ag.
Join today and receive your 50% welcome bonus at betonline.ag.
Well, we've got two new developments from the Boston Celtics on this draft night. The first being Grant Williams being selected at the number 22 spot in the first round. He's a really smart guy. We just heard from Brad Stevens briefly, who spoke on the fact that he's super impressive when you sit down with the kid. He's tough, he's smart, he's got a point guard's mindset. Immediate thoughts on Williams being the next addition to Boston?
Well, I think it's just the Celtics showing that they are trying to change the culture on the team. Brad Stevens categorizes as one of the smartest players he's ever talked to, at that stage. A winner, a two-time SEC Player of the Year at Tennessee. It's about culture to me.
Yeah, and this is a guy that, Brad Stevens said you couldn't be more impressed with him when you sat down with him. And I think it's interesting because if Langford was the guy where they're kind of reaching for the sky in that pick and saying we're going to take the absolute best player available, Williams seems like more of the safe pick. He seems like a guy who you're going to be able to come in, a guy you'll be able to count on, play a couple of different positions, and will be able to, hopefully help this team a little bit up front. Probably not the sexiest pick in the world, but a pick that a lot of people seem high on. One thing I think is going to be an interesting one is they traded out of that number 20 spot, so they could have made a pick there. Yep. They didn't. Team trades up. I believe it was Memphis traded up and got Brandon Clark at number 21. So that's going to be an interesting one to watch down the road to see whether similar position guys, whether Brandon Clark or Grant Williams has the better career, because you could have gotten Brandon Clark if you had stayed at 20.
And real quick, I think this is Danny Ainge pulling a page out of the Bill Belichick playbook in terms of going with a guy who has been at the best of competition. And look, Belichick always talks about how important it is to take a player who has played at the stiffest competition. Well, that's Grant Williams in the SEC.
Yeah, and you don't see that much in college basketball with the draft because a lot of people, again, they're drafting on potential, they're drafting freshmen. Mm-hmm. This is a guy who actually was the best player on one of the best teams in the country. We'll see if that translates.
And another developing story here tonight, part of the trade that the Celtics traded their number 24 pick to the Suns included Aron Baynes. Aron Baynes is now a member of the Phoenix Suns, someone that Boston really took under their wing. Brad Stevens said he couldn't comment much about it tonight, but he did say, quote, "You all know how I feel about him." What's your reaction on the fact that Baynes is no longer a Celtic?
Well, I wonder how Aron Baynes feels about the Boston Celtics right now being traded to the Phoenix Suns. You don't know. Phoenix is a lovely place to be. The weather is nice in terms of, but, this is a guy who came to Boston, seemed to like the limelight of the intensity of the Garden crowd, opts into his player contract thinking he's going to be on a team that's going to at least, whether Kyrie Irving was back here or not, is going to at least try to attempt to compete for a championship alongside Al Horford. Then within a couple of days, Horford decides apparently that he's not coming back to the Celtics, and the Celtics trade him to one of the worst teams in the NBA. So, Danny Ainge can be ruthless when it comes to this stuff. We know that full well from the Isaiah Thomas experience, but depending on how Aaron feels about this one, this is kind of a tough blow.
Well, two things here. I think one, and fans are going to kind of, cringe when I say this, it's $5.5 million cap savings.
Right.
And fans are wondering, well, for the incredible influence he had in that locker room, why would you sacrifice for $5.5 million? But every penny is going to count if the Patriots are going to go out, if the Celtics are going to go out, Patriots on the mind, if the Celtics are going to go out and make some very important free agent moves this summer.
Yeah, and it does, they will have cap space available if Al Horford moves on. So now you're in a position where you can absorb a player without having to match salaries. And that's something that, we had a few years ago when they were able to sign Al Horford. They were able to sign Gordon Hayward. They were able to make some trades. You've been restricted in the last couple of years because you've had to consider any time you've wanted to deal for a higher paid player, you've had to consider Marcus Smart being a tradable contract because you had to find a way to match that $20 million salary.
Right.
Now that they're in the 20s for cap space, they'd be able to absorb a player without having to give up the salary in return.
And this segment has been brought to you by betonline.ag. Head to clnsmedia.com/win. Enter promo code CLNS50 for 50% cash back on your first deposit. So Boston is losing a gritty, selfless player in Aron Baynes, but hopefully gaining that bigger body, tough guy in Grant Williams. For more of our draft day coverage, go to our website at clnsmedia.com and follow all of our content on our YouTube channel at CLNS Media.